In early 2024, Will Ospreay turned down WWE and signed with All Elite Wrestling. His reasons were straightforward. He wanted to stay in the UK, near his wife and the life he'd built there, and AEW offered him a deal that made it possible. So a great wrestler picked the company that suited him and carried on wrestling at the top of the card. Fans got more good wrestling out of it. On paper, nobody lost a thing. A particular corner of the internet was furious anyway. The reaction was rage. Personal, sustained, the kind you'd expect from a betrayal. From people who had never met Ospreay and had no stake in where he worked. They needed him to choose their team, and he didn't. This video is about that reaction, where it comes from, why it's louder now than it's ever been, and why in 2026 it makes less sense than ever. I'll be fair to both companies because both have earned it. What I'm interested in is one of the stranger habits in modern wrestling. The need of a certain kind of fan and at least one major wrestling executive to be the only valid option in the room. In the build to WrestleMania 40 in April 2024, Triple H sat down on the Pat McAfee show and made a comment about talent who weren't, in his words, ready for the grind. The implication was that some wrestlers only wanted to work one day a week and that those people didn't belong in WWE. He didn't name anyone, he didn't need to. Ospreay had just turned WWE down, and one of the reasons he'd given publicly was that he didn't want to uproot his life in the UK. Ospreay later confirmed on Chris Van Vliet's podcast that the grind comments were aimed at him. He wasn't wounded by it, but he answered. On the April 10th episode of Dynamite, he cut a promo pointing out that Levesque got where he is in part because of who he married, Stephanie McMahon. Sharp. A few people thought it went too far. Forget the promo for a second. The part worth sitting with is that the head of creative at the biggest wrestling company on earth felt the need to publicly swing at a free agent for choosing somewhere else. Ospreay hadn't trashed WWE, he signed elsewhere, gave his reasons, and went off to put together one of the best runs in modern wrestling. The response from WWE's creative chief amounted to, "If you didn't come to us, you're not serious about the work." There's a simpler word for that, and it's insecurity. Underneath it sits an assumption that a top talent might weigh up WWE, look at everything on offer, and honestly prefer something else is a possibility that doesn't compute. The only explanations left are that the wrestler is lazy, or scared, or doesn't get it. That AEW might just be the better fit for a British wrestler who wanted to stay home and was being offered creative freedom and real money doesn't enter the frame. Anyone who spent time in wrestling spaces online knows the shape of this. A clip of an AEW match gets posted and the replies fill with people who don't watch AEW explaining why it's garbage. A WWE show gets criticised and the same thing runs in reverse, people who haven't tuned in for years lining up to mock it. None of this is new. There was tribalism in the Monday Night Wars, around TNA, in every era that had an alternative. What feels different now is the intensity. More personal, more committed, more allergic to the actual facts. MJF put it well in a recent interview. The tribalism around AEW is strange, he said, because it treats the existence of options as a problem. He reached for a metaphor. Imagine eating Italian every night, and the one time your wife suggests sushi, you spit on her. That's the energy. Treating someone else's menu as a personal insult. Some of that is ordinary tribal psychology. People build an identity around the things they love, and a threat to that identity, even an imaginary one, gets a defensive response. A lot of fans grew up with WWE as the only game in town and built their fandom around the monopoly. A serious alternative reads as a challenge to who they are. Some of it was built deliberately. When Vince McMahon ran the company, denying competitors any legitimacy was a conscious strategy, and it left a residue. Certain wrestling media, certain ex-WWE voices, certain podcasters kept the habit going long after AEW arrived, until AEW bad was close to a reflex. And some of it AEW earned. The company gave people real reasons to be skeptical, especially around 2023. Internal problems, public relations messes, creative that wandered. That was all true. AEW went through a genuinely rough patch, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest. The Punk situation, the locker room politics, the stretches of directionless creative, Tony Khan's social media habits ranging from charming to self-sabotaging depending on the week. All real. What's also real is that Khan seems to have done some genuine self-reflection. The man who once called WWE the Harvey Weinstein of professional wrestling has, by most accounts, changed how he operates. He's more measured in interviews. He's stopped picking fights with WWE online. He's pointed the company at making good shows instead of winning arguments on Twitter. In a detail that's had almost no mainstream pickup, he's credited a rediscovered Christian faith with helping him take the higher road. Take that as you like. It's still a striking turn from one of the most impulsive promoters social media has produced. The product backs it up. By most measures, Dynamite and Collision are putting on the best in-ring wrestling on television. Pay-per-view buys are up. Live attendance is climbing year over year across most American markets. The locker room, by several accounts, is a better place to work than it was 2 years ago. MJF, not a man given to understatement, called the current roster an embarrassment of riches, and it's hard to argue with the names. Ospreay, Hangman Adam Page, Swerve Strickland, Kevin Knight, Darby Allin, Kenny Omega. Plenty of them had WWE interest. They picked AEW, and they're thriving. None of this is to say WWE is a write-off. There's real talent there. Cody Rhodes has been one of the best babyfaces in the business for 2 years running. CM Punk, whatever you make of him, is still one of the most compelling acts alive. Gunther is excellent. The top of the roster is stacked. The product around that talent is where it gets complicated, and WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas this past April put the priorities on display. Night 1 ran close to 4 hours. Roughly an hour and 23 minutes of that was actual wrestling, under 35% of the show. One of the most aired commercials of the night was for the Hulk Hogan Netflix documentary, a dead man's promo material eating into the biggest night on the wrestling calendar. Fans clocked Hogan-related content at somewhere between 25 and 38 minutes across the 2 nights. Several entrances were cut from the broadcast to make room for ads. Dragon Lee reportedly wore mechanical dragon wings for the Intercontinental ladder match, and the people who paid to watch never saw them. Fans inside Allegiant Stadium who'd paid premium prices to be in the building sat through commercial breaks in person. Matt Hardy on the Ariel Helwani show said the event felt prostituted, that WrestleMania used to be sacred and that not everything should be for sale. And a fan who'd bought a promotional package spent part of the show sitting at the commentary table. Night 2 was a lot better, in fairness, but Night 1 had already said what it needed to about what the event is now for. The Pat McAfee business has turned into a symbol of what frustrates people about the current structure. In early April 2026, weeks out from WrestleMania, McAfee got dropped into the Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton title program. He stormed the ring on SmackDown, hit Rhodes with a low blow, and cut a promo about Rhodes representing everything wrong with WWE. Fans didn't buy him as a credible threat in a world title story, but the bigger issue was how it came together. Multiple reports had the call coming not from Triple H's creative team, but from TKO executive chairman Ari Emanuel, whose agency represents McAfee. Corporate synergy off the back of WWE's ESPN deal dropped straight into a championship arc that had been built for months. Then, TKO president Mark Shapiro, speaking at the University of Alabama, confirmed that TKO has complete control over WWE's creative. He was matter-of-fact about it, maybe even pleased. Dave Meltzer reported the mood internally in the hours before Night 1 as chaos, like WCW. The wrestling side didn't want McAfee in the title match and got overruled. McAfee then reportedly backed out of continuing past WrestleMania, which collapsed the planned follow-up tag match, and Rhodes, who along with members of creative had objected to the interference, was told to cut an unscheduled shoot-style promo to paper over it on the night. That's the tell. A media conglomerate was making the storyline calls for synergy reasons, and the wrestling people who objected got overruled. In May 2026, WWE aired a vignette on NXT that fans pegged almost instantly as AI generated. The off textures, the strange faces, the odd transitions. They called it AI slop. Shapiro had already said AI was a major priority for storylines and production, and named Nick Khan and Triple H as using it for storylines. This is a company that spent decades with arguably the best production unit in the business. Its video packages were cinematic, its visual storytelling genuinely world-class. Trading that for AI generators because they're cheaper is a choice, and it tells you which way the company is leaning. If you want the TKO era in one story, look at what happened to the New Day. Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods are two of the most beloved acts of the last decade. The most decorated tag team in WWE's history by branded reigns, and Kofi's championship win at WrestleMania in 2019 is one of the genuinely moving moments in modern WWE. In December 2024, the company turned them heel, rejecting an injured Big E on his way back. A sharp, well-executed turn with real stakes that Triple H praised publicly. Then it went nowhere. Big E, still dealing with a broken neck, was never cleared for the kind of program the turn demanded. Kingston and Woods won the tag titles in early 2025 and worked feuds, but the heel turn never got its payoff, and the story drifted without the figure who'd given it meaning. A year into a 5-year contract they just signed in 2025, WWE came to them and asked them to restructure for less money. Mid-deal, not at renewal. Meltzer laid it out in The Observer. The two were on the list of talent without significant future plans, and were handed a choice between a pay cut to stay and wind down, or the door. They'd have been cut either way. They left, which to their credit was the self-respecting move. For scale, Meltzer also reported that the combined 2025 pay of just 5 TKO executives came in barely under the total salaries of every in-ring performer in the company. Shapiro and Emmanuel each reportedly made around $42.6 million last year, up roughly a third on 2024, while the people generating the content were being asked to take 50% cuts. The Miz is rumoured, and this is speculation rather than confirmed, to be among those who took a restructured deal. And the New Day are only the most visible version of it. WrestleMania 43 is heading to Saudi Arabia in 2027. The 2026 Royal Rumble was already held there. When the WrestleMania news landed, the comments under Triple H's announcement livestream filled with "You sold out" almost immediately. A detail that surfaced later, WWE had tried to sell the Saudis a WrestleMania branded event rather than the real one, and the Saudis turned it down. They wanted the actual WrestleMania, and WWE folded. The Show of Shows, the event that's anchored the calendar since 1985, is being staged in a country with extensive documented human rights concerns because the terms were too good to walk away from. That's the math a publicly traded company with shareholders ends up doing. This cuts both ways, and being fair means saying so. Talent has moved in both directions, with mixed and instructive results. MJF made a point about a stretch where AEW had people in the locker room using the company as a stepping stone, showing up, positioning themselves to look good, planning to spring back to WWE off the visibility. He floated Malachi Black as a likely example, while being careful to say he doesn't know Black personally and doesn't think he's a bad guy. And the Black story is more tangled than the label suggests. As Aleister Black in WWE, then Malachi in AEW, he had a strong debut and a feud with Cody Rhodes that looked like it was going somewhere. And then he landed in the House of Black, a fun faction with a low ceiling, never won the world title, and by one description spent week after week in Groundhog Day. His contract lapsed in February 2025 and he left. Whether that was a stepping stone move or creative failing to deliver on its promises is genuinely unclear. The reporting points at both, and the urge to leave had been building a while. Miro is a similar shape. Badly underused in his final AEW years, hadn't wrestled since 2023, communication reportedly gone radio silent before his release. A talent who deserved better from both companies. Andrade went the other way, leaving AEW and returning to WWE at the 2024 Royal Rumble, landing on Raw and then going 1-3 across his first 4 matches. The bigger stage turned out to be the same story with a new backdrop. The names WWE fans reach for are Penta and Cody, as proof the best talent ends up where it belongs, and as success stories, they're real. Penta debuted on the Netflix premiere of Raw in January 2025, went over 40 minutes in the Rumble, and has been excellent as a singles act. WWE built him before he arrived and used him properly from day one. Cody's return and his championship run at WrestleMania 40 is one of the best stories modern wrestling has produced. CM Punk sits in his own bubble, magnetic and doing strong work, while the organization around him deals with real backstage turbulence. The part the argument skips is where those stars were made. Penta spent years in AEW as a foundation of the tag division. That's where the value was built, and WWE signed him at the peak of an established reputation rather than discovering him. Same with Cody. His AEW years were the foundation. He left WWE the first time as a frustrated mid-carder and came back a made star, a fully formed character built around his father's legacy, and that character took shape in AEW. AEW made those two, and WWE had the scale and the platform to cash it in front of the biggest possible crowd. That's a healthy ecosystem doing what it's supposed to. The only thing missing is one side admitting the other built the thing it's now profiting from. Underneath all of this is one assumption: that WWE is the summit, that truly elite talent ends up there eventually, and that anyone who doesn't, or who leaves, has either failed or settled. That was always shaky. In 2026, it's hard to defend at all. Will Ospreay has been one of the most acclaimed wrestlers alive for several years running without a single day on a WWE roster. MJF, a two-time AEW World Champion, is building a mainstream profile alongside it. He's in Happy Gilmore too, and has said openly that he wants to be the fourth face on the wrestler-to-actor Mount Rushmore, next to Batista, Cena, and The Rock, and to get there without ever working for WWE. Whether he makes it is an open question. That the goal isn't ridiculous is the point. Healthy competition isn't complicated. Wrestlers go where they're paid fairly, booked well, and treated right, and that choice keeps both companies honest. Fans get to watch both. And when each company sees the other doing something well, it raises the floor for everyone. The unhealthy version is the one we've been describing. An executive needling a wrestler for signing elsewhere. A fanbase demanding that every great talent eventually validate its product. The occasional planted story, like the WWE-sourced line that AEW couldn't land a TV deal, which MJF called out to its face as competitive propaganda. Tony Khan, for all the earlier noise, has mostly walked away from that fight. He's not firing off inflammatory takes, he's putting on shows and letting them talk. The irony writes itself. The fanbase of the company that threw the first punches is still swinging at a war the other side already left. There's a moment from that Helwani interview that stuck with me. He asked MJF about Darby Allin, and MJF, whose entire character is built on being the most self-obsessed heel in the business, said he can't call Darby fake. The guy is real, he said, light on or light off, and that means something, even though it makes him uncomfortable, even though he doesn't fully get why people love him. That's what the best wrestling does. It finds people who are exactly who they say they are, puts them in a ring, and lets something real happen. It can happen in WWE or AEW, on an indie show, in Japan or Mexico, in a gym in front of 200 people. None of it requires the other thing to die first. Not everyone has to work for you. That's the best version of professional wrestling there is.